Hey there, engineer. Welcome back to science class, where today we are going to use our observing eyes and look at different ingredients to make observations about which would be the best for glue. Now, we learned last week that a mixture is a material that's made with two or more ingredients, and an ingredient means part of a mixture. So when we think about a cake is a mixture, but you need all of these ingredients and probably even more to make this big birthday cake. So you take ingredients, which are different materials or substances, mix them together, and that makes a mixture. So today we're going to be looking at ingredients, and then we're going to put something else in them to look at a mixture. So we are trying to answer this big question: what happens when you mix different substances together? Well, obviously, when you mix different substances together, it becomes a mixture, but it might have different properties. So we're going to be looking at that today. We have a science challenge. We are going to use our scientific skills to be material engineers to design the best school glue possible. Now, last week, we started to make a plan about our glue, and so many of you at home had great ideas. You said our glue should be sticky. Our glue should be strong. There are so many properties that our glue could have, but we had to think about the ones that our glue should have. All right, so we planned it out, and today we are going to make some different mixtures to see if we can find some ingredients for glue. Now, if you have some ingredients at home, you can get them out now. The list is on your assignment. We need salt, flour, cornstarch, and baking soda. If you have those things, you can ask an adult to help you at home. Pause the video now and go gather what you need. If not, I have my materials here and we're going to look at them together. Now, we're going to look using our eyes. We're going to touch them with something to stir them with. If you're at home, you could get a spoon or a toothpick. I'm using toothpicks, which I need to go get. And we are going to look at them using our eyes, touch with whatever you're stirring with, and we're going to smell by wafting, which is a science action to make sure that we don't get anything that we don't want in our nose. So I'm going to go grab my toothpicks. If you need to, pause the video and go grab your materials that are listed on our assignment, and then we will get started. All right, I am going to go ahead and move through this experiment. If there is a time, if you're doing it at home, anytime you need a little bit of extra time, just pause the video to get what you need to get ready. So we are going to start looking at the properties of this dry ingredient, salt. So I have labels on my cups. This is ingredient A, which is salt, and we're going to look at what it looks like. For each ingredient, I want you to write down or think about one observation. When you go to the assignment, you're going to type in one observation for each dry ingredient and each wet mixture. If you need to pause the video and fill that in as we go, you can do that. Whatever makes it easiest for you at home, taking notes, typing as we go, whatever you need to do to get it done. Now, let's take a look at this first ingredient, salt. And I'm going to make myself very big so that you can see our cup of salt. All right, let's see if I can get this going. Most of you know what salt looks like, but in case you don't, you can take a look right here. I see that this salt is white. I see that there's little tiny crystals. We use a word called grainy to show that. And I know that it's dry. What other observations can we make about this salt? I want you to think about it, write it down if you need to, type it if you need to. And now I'm going to show you what it means to waft an ingredient. Wafting means we're going to put it near our nose, but not right under our nose. And we're going to push the smell towards us. Salt doesn't have a very strong smell, so I don't smell much, but we were able to see a lot of different properties looking at this salt. All right, our next ingredient, ingredient B, is some baking soda. B for baking soda. Now, I noticed this one is also white in color. Let's take a look at it. It's white in color, but this one does not look as grainy. This one is a little more of a powder. You can't see actual little pieces of it. It's all kind of mixed together. It also looks pretty clumpy in some spots. So those are some different observations I see. Why don't you take a look at it, see if you can see anything on the video or at home if you're following along. All right, moving on to our next ingredient. Our next ingredient is flour. So most of you should know what flour looks like. It's kind of got a white color. It's a little different of a white than the other two. It's not as bright. It's kind of a dull or an off-white. This one looks kind of clumpy like the cornstarch. What I notice about this one is it's a very fine powder, right? It's not grainy like the salt. It's a very fine powder. So if you can see that on your screen or at home, I want you making a few observations about this dry ingredient flour. And let's move on to the next one. All right, our last ingredient, ingredient D, is some cornstarch. Cornstarch is something you might use in the kitchen to make some gravy or something like that, but we might use it to make some glue. So cornstarch, why don't you guys take a look at it? It looks white like the other ingredients. It looks powdery like some of the other ingredients. It is not grainy like salt. And that's what I see. I'm going to go ahead and waft this one. I don't smell much from that one either. Now that we have looked at the dry ingredients, we are going to add some water and look at them as wet ingredients. So if you're following along at home, you can go ahead and do this. If not, you can just watch me here. I'm going to get some water in my fancy, this is called a pipette. I'm going to add some water and I'm going to use my toothpick to mix it up. Mixing it up. Got some air bubbles or something in there. All right. Now I'm going to show you this again, and I want you to think about what's changed. What properties do we see in this wet mixture here? Obviously, it's wet because we've added some water. I do notice, though, that the salt does not dissolve, and here's what that means. Think about making Kool-Aid or Crystal Light or something like that. When you put the powder in, all of the powder goes away. In this one, none of the salt has gone away. It's just kind of salt in water. It almost looks like sand at the beach or something. It hasn't dissolved. It's just in the cup still, and there's water also. It's changed in color a little bit because it's wet. It's not as bright. It's gotten a little bit darker. All right, moving on to our next ingredient. Sorry if the camera's kind of crazy. I'm trying to do this as best as I can here. Thank you for following along. Now, I am going to pipette some water into cup B. And I think I'm going to put a little bit more in there. I'm going to mix it up. Remember, cup B was baking soda. Let's see what happens when we add some water to our baking soda. Ooh. Now, see, this is what's different between the last ingredient. All of the baking soda has gone away. It's dissolved. It's turned into a liquid. Ooh. Turned into a liquid. And there we are. So I see that it's gotten very watery. And it doesn't seem to have gotten very sticky though. Let's see, use the toothpick to see if I can feel, no, it's still very liquidy. It's not really sticky at all. So I'm already thinking that this probably isn't going to be a great glue ingredient, but hey, who knows? Next week when we test them, maybe we'll see. All right, So we see that the baking soda has gotten completely liquid. It's still very bright white, and it is not sticky. All right, moving on to cup C. This is some flour. Let's see what adding water to flour might do to change its properties. I'm going to go ahead and mix it up. This one's a little bit harder to mix. All right, let's check it out. This one, has gotten very clumpy. When I put my toothpick in there, some of it sticks to the toothpick. So maybe this might be a good ingredient for glue, but we're still not sure. It's just having a hard time dissolving in the water, but it's not grainy like the salt was. It's very clumpy. The color has stayed that like off white. It's not bright white, but it's not white, I guess is how I would say that. So it's pretty liquid. It moves pretty easily, but it's not as watery as the baking powder was. All right, or the baking soda, excuse me. Now, our last cup is some cornstarch. I'm gonna go ahead and put some water in there, and I'm gonna mix it up and see what happens. Now I'm mixing up my cornstarch and water mixture. Now this one, the cornstarch has pretty much completely dissolved into the water already. I don't see any of the cornstarch left. It's just a white liquid here, and I'm going to show you what that looks like now. So you can kind of see it moving around in there. It's just a white liquid. And that is the cornstarch wet mixture with water. Now, I want you to head over to the classwork tab, and you're gonna look at the assignment, lesson 6, where we are observing ingredients of our mixture. I want you to write at least one property that each of those ingredients had when they were dry and then when they were wet. If you need to watch this again to take some notes, go ahead and do that. I cannot wait to see what properties you come up with, and I will see you next time.